I think that we have to be really careful, you guys, about having a one size fits all perspective. And this is, again, why I'm a Protestant. I wish so badly, and I've told all my friends who are Catholic and Orthodox, I would love to sit and participate and enjoy the old wine with them. One of the problems I have with doing that is because they believe they're the one true church. Once I convert into their tradition, if new wine starts to emerge in my family or in those I disciple, I am forced to push them into an old wineskin, even if it's not what is best for their faith. I will feel that pressure because I will have made the declaration that this is the one true church and everybody should be a part of it. This is the one true Eucharist or whatever. So once you make those kinds of statements that only old wine is legitimate and only old wineskins are from the Lord and are the one true church, then of course you run into this real dilemma that Jesus is trying to resolve here. However, if you just accept everything Jesus is saying here, and again, we're not getting super deep into ecclesiology. I know there's 100 other verses that come in when people are like, "What about this authority?" And I know there's a million things we could talk about. I just want to say, from a framework perspective, it's really important to understand that for those of us who do not believe that there is one true church, but there's lots of different expressions of the church that are legitimate, I read this passage about the difference in wineskins, and it's extremely instructive and helpful to me because I really can understand why, as a father or a leader of a family, I am going to be watching my own children, those who I disciple, and understand that there are some folks who are raised in a way where they can really truly appreciate the old wine, even at a young stage in their life or a young stage in their spiritual maturity. They're able to really savor the old wine. But there are so many people who can't. And to take away from them the experience, or those who are exceptionally gifted at crafting new wineskins, and to say that, look, all that's illegitimate. And I would rather, because the old wine is so much better to me, I would rather that new wine gets spilled out on the ground than acknowledge that there's anything but old wineskins. That is what I hear from people who are like, look, there's only one true church. And I'm sorry that, there are millions of people who have grown up in it and are not experiencing the gospel in any meaningful way. And I've seen millions of those people come into a dynamic relationship with the Lord through new wineskins. But if I could, theologically, I would cut off every one of those new wineskins and only force all that new wine into old wineskins. That is a lose lose according to Jesus. You both will hurt the old wineskin because if you force, and this is what we saw over and over again in the Middle Ages and a lot of these different difficult times in church history, people were just being forced into this same wineskin. I've just been studying the Puritan movement, a lot of things that were happening in England, and just these new wineskins they kept trying to build, and people kept getting thrown in prison and burned at the stake. And it's just like, why attack the wineskins? Why not let the different wineskins develop so that there's places for new wine and there is an appreciation for old wine without it suggesting that there's only one answer. So thanks for jumping in here. We would love to talk to you guys. Go to onekh.org if you're interested. We have a deep dive into our own ecclesiology, our understanding of how the church works, and all of its diversity, and how this impacts households that we're activating to disciple the city. We have a great course called A House for Community, where we dive into, okay, what does it mean for us to craft the kinds of communities in and through our houses that are full of life, that allow us to practice radical hospitality for those who are being discipled and coming to the kingdom, and something that's fully integrated with our children and our family as a whole. So that is a wineskin expression that we think is missing in a lot of people's lives and that they are really hungry for. So we'd love to talk to you guys about that if you're interested.